Let's look at the next page. Now you have the throttling page. Throttling is very interesting. So, throttling page, this is where you have the interactive delay, interactive rejection, and background rejections. Now, throttling is actually based on, the consumption that is resulting into smoothing policies. So, if you don't know about smoothing and bursting, there's a good article on Microsoft. Maybe I can just flash that quickly. So, I'll just take a minute to explain you about the smoothing and bursting capabilities here. So, I'll just move display settings and swap present and slideshow. So let me come here. So bursting and smoothing. So bursting operations normally use the compute and then the SKU provides the jobs that you have and it goes over a period of time. So that is where the smaller capacity workloads like mine that I have that burst out, resulting into costlier SKU. Smoothing is where the burst is averaged by the future 30-second time points and then it basically pays back from the future capacities. Like for example, if I'm at day one of my capacity beginning and if I want to I'm using the capacity very heavily, it basically accumulates and sees okay over a period of time I have the remaining capacity and it just basically consumes from there and then it starts consuming the remaining pending CUs that you have from there and then you have to ensure then you don't use operations for a period of time so that it kind of helps you to kind of balance things out. So like for example, to example here is just Microsoft has provided example of why spikes cause zero throttling. So for example, I have one particular job. This is consuming 3600 CUs. Now the F2's budget is this much, and the job is used already 6x. Now background has smooth over a period of time, so it basically charge the CU in that duration, and then later on it is just charged 2.1. So that means the impact is higher, but the capacity doesn't come down throttling because it kind of averages out at the later stage. Then again, throttling is progressive, how you have the capacity example is 10 minutes, how is it 10 to 16 minutes, and then interactive rejections happen, new jobs which are rejected in 60 minutes to 24 hours, and then anything after 24 hours, it starts rejecting the background rejection. So that is where you need to understand, how the protection is there, how the delay happens, where it starts and where it starts rejecting everything for you. So how you want to read the metrics app, which I'll show again. So how the delays are there when the rejections happen and how background rejections there. These are the tabs that we can go through. And yep, then the last part of this is majorly in terms of how you want to stay out from this. Basically, you have to ensure that if your capacities are consumed heavily, pause the capacities, scale up your SKUs, monitor your SKUs before it starts hurting and your job starts failing, and look at auto scaling. So these are the four areas that you want to see. So always at every day start looking at your Fabric Metrics app and try to understand how the throttling has happened, where the impact has happened, and so on. So if you look at this skew now, it is all flat over a period of time, and then I just used it at one particular time and it just spiked up. But whereas the other skew that I have here, this is being used by a lot of users, so I'm seeing multiple throttling around this, and I can just use the zoom slider here, and I can say, in what day, how my capacities were throttled, and so on. So I zoom in into time and it shows, I'm still going below 100% to some point in time. So again, we come back to this. Now, one of the key things that we want to also understand is, the interaction delay. We have the interactive rejection. So talking about the interactive rejections here, as we spoke about the interactive delay. So interactive operations are majorly, this is where it gets delay within the 10 minute of the interactive smoothing that has caused the threshold. Interactive rejection is 60 minutes. Anything in 60 minutes of interactive smoothing, now it starts getting into the rejection mode. And then you have the background rejections. This is where it goes with a 24-hour background window. So if you are continuously using your capacities and you are trying to see where how it is being throttled, so it will start looking at analyzing whether capacities has been rejected or not. If I go and change this to F2, the F4 capacity that I have, there could be some background rejection that have happened because there was one in my health. So we'll have to understand here how the background rejections, what where were there any impact. So if you see, it has crossed beyond 100%, it's going to 200%. This is where the rejections happened for me and my cap. I had to pause the capacity while using it because I was not able to do anything. I had to pause it for 1.5 days at least for it to start smoothing up, and then I started using it again. So yeah, so this is about the throttling.